as always, this is entirely my experience. That's all I'm able to offer you. I am not an addiction counselor. I am not a PhD addiction scientist by any means, although if you have a PhD in addiction science, or if you are an addictions counselor, I would love to have you on this channel to do a little interview. But I say all this just for that disclaimer that I'm speaking entirely from my own experience. I've also never, by the grace of God or, whatever, I've never been addicted to alcohol. I've never been addicted to heroin. I've managed even to avoid addiction to nicotine somehow. And so I am also coming at this from the perspective of somebody that has only ever really struggled truly with one substance addiction, and that is cannabis. But I want to talk in this video about why, from my perspective, right, observing the other people that are in my life, what they've gone through, the articles that I've read, why it is that cannabis feels so uniquely difficult to quit. And I think it comes down mostly to accessibility and manageability, right? When you're addicted to something like heroin, it's pretty total in what the degree to which it takes over your life, right? When you smoke, or when you inject heroin, when you smoke crack, the degree of your ability to manage that in terms of your life, in terms of your relationships, career opportunities, anything that you want to achieve, is pretty much dashed, right? You're trading almost everything for that addiction. The thing about cannabis is it's much easier. Check this little bug out. I don't know why this guy landed on my hand. But it's much easier to manage a lot of these other factors of your life, and thus it's easier to maintain a relationship with, right? Something like alcohol, we have this conversation about functional alcoholics a lot. And it's true to a degree, right? You still can hold down a job. You still can some way, somehow kind of show up for people in your life, the relationships that you're in. But the tax is far higher, right? The amount of energy that it takes, the degree to which you have to make sacrifices, not showing up to your kid's game, right? Not going for that promotion at work, right? Having to skip out on work, having to skip out on various obligations that you otherwise want to take on. It's much more extreme. With cannabis, it's not that, it's not as extreme, right? And this is one of those things that I talk about, that the cost of the addiction is a much longer trajectory. For most people, they start smoking weed and it's pretty harmless. It's pretty, it's enjoyable. It's exciting. It's like being on an adventure with your friends or discovering a whole new layer of reality. Now, like I said, I've never been addicted to heroin. I've never even done heroin. But I've done a lot of other drugs, and that experience is still there, right? It is kind of like this crazy magical adventure. But it wears off, and it can quickly kind of become this thing that it really overtakes your life. The other thing that I'll comment on is the recovery period. With cannabis, you can smoke, and then the next day, assuming you don't just go ham smoking the whole day so extremely, the next day you almost don't feel any kind of recovery cost, right? And so you can smoke and you can kind of enjoy that, and then you can go back to functioning in life. There's a saying regarding alcohol that drinking takes 2 days. The day that you drink, and then the day that it takes you to recover. If you've ever been drunk before, you probably can relate to that statement quite a lot. I'm gonna have to turn around here. And so I would say that that's really the main reason that I'm making this, the kind of main takeaway from this video of why I believe cannabis is so much harder to quit, is because maintaining a relationship with it is so much easier. And therefore, many of us end up maintaining that relationship for a much longer period of time. For those of you that have struggled with other addictions, there's probably a reason that you are watching this video in particular, right? I've been having a conversation the last few days with somebody who struggled with a lot of, addiction to a lot of opiates, and they managed to overcome all of them, but they are still going back to rehab, predominantly because of cannabis. I'm actually talking to like two of you guys with almost this exact same story. And I think that there's a reason for that, right? The effects are milder. It is not as taxing on your body. It's not as taxing on your mind and your obligations. And therefore we kind of use it as a crutch. And I think at first that's a good thing, right? To have access to cannabis, and if it works for you like that, to help you sort of calm your nerves, calm your dopaminergic systems, and be able to wean off of these other more intense chemicals, that's a phenomenal thing. There's a lot of science out there that does talk about the health benefits of THC, the capacity to utilize THC, sort of as a mental health crutch, especially when you're, seeking to overcome addiction or work through trauma or anything else like that. The problem becomes that, you really start to normalize it. Dude, I have a giant spider on my hand. Oops. Hopefully that spider is not poisonous. But it's easy to fall into that, right? It's easy to fall into using cannabis like that. And so I think that's kind of, for a lot of us, that's what ends up happening, is we use it as this crutch, right? We try to overcome these other substances. We're able to do it partially because it's, they're so extreme and they are so taxing, and we are so viscerally aware of why they're damaging, right? But then when it comes to cannabis, the effects are much more long-term, right? It takes a lot longer for cannabis to really start to chip away at what you could have otherwise been, right? The version of yourself that you could have otherwise achieved had you been consistently sober, right? And so that relationship has been built up to such a degree that letting go of it becomes really, really hard, right? It's very easy to associate the negative effects of alcohol or heroin. You're like, man, I can immediately associate the degree to which this has damaged my, intimate relationships, the degree to which this has caused me to fail to show up to my job, or fail to show up to the activities that I know I need to do to further myself in whatever entrepreneurial or creative endeavors that I have. With cannabis, a lot of the time, most of us end up associating cannabis as a beneficiary to a lot of these things, right? Every music artist you'll ever meet will talk about either using cannabis or trying to get over using cannabis, right? And a lot of what they'll say is like, well, cannabis became a really integral part of my creative process of writing the songs, of actually performing the songs, recording them, right? And then I stopped smoking, and of course my dopaminergic systems kind of are starting to move back to baseline, or they're dipping below baseline, right? I try to talk about how when you consume substances, they're sort of taking your typical dopamine wavelength, right? Your typical wavelength is like right around here. Like you feel a little bit good, you feel a little bit bad. Something really awesome happens, you feel pretty good. Something really depressing happens, you feel pretty bad. But you always return back to that normal state, right? But when you start ingesting chemicals, they make everything more extreme, right? So they make that positive feeling way more extreme. And then the come down from that doesn't just return you to baseline, it drops you way below baseline, right? And so, trying to bring it back to my point. We develop a dependency, and more often than not, that dependency is very much subconscious. We are not aware of just how much it's affecting us, and thus we find ourselves craving it without even intending to crave it, right? Building up an addiction without even intending to build up an addiction. Something that felt harmless, something that felt exciting, inspiring, it becomes routine and we start to rely on it, right? And then breaking out of that routine, let's just be honest, it's fucking miserable at first. And so I would say that that's part of the reason that cannabis is so difficult to quit, is that the actual duration of time that it takes to experience the negative effects is longer. Thereby it's harder to associate the negative experiences of your life with that cannabis. And therefore those negative experiences are so much harder to recall as you begin to quit, right? It's so much easier to be like, well, you know what? Just this one time, just today, it would feel so much better to smoke. Or, just this one morning, It'd be totally fine to have a wake and bake. But then what happens is you return right back to that old cycle, right? You rocket launch your dopamine, and then as it starts to dip back down, you feel like shit, and you need more weed to return you to that baseline of feeling good. And so I talked a little bit about this in the last video I made on doom scrolling, but I think that the methodologies of overcoming this are pretty much exactly the same, right? You need to figure out how to return yourself to a state of dopamine balance, right? You need to figure out how to naturally create your own dopamine. And you do that by doing things like working out, right? By investing in a creative output. I'll talk a little bit about what's worked so far for me to overcome cannabis and to avoid smoking it up until this point. But it's the exact same thing. I mean, first and foremost, you have to get really crystal clear on that association. I talked a little bit about this in the last video, how you can set goals all day. You can create like the best version of yourself in your mind and, aspire to be that version of yourself. But I think one of the things that's even more effective than that is to get really crystal clear on what hasn't been working. Why is weed not working for you, right? I know a lot of you are watching this video and you're like, well, I already know, but make it really conscious. Write it down, right? I learned this method from a guy here on YouTube, but you essentially write out who it is that we can start by writing out who it is that you want to become, but then write out 9 months from now, if things were to continue going poorly for you, right? What would that look like? What would your life look like? Maybe you're even more tired, right? Maybe you almost completely give up with any of the positive self-development things that you're doing. Maybe you're really, right now, like I'm really pushing myself to consistently work out. And I've been doing a really good job, but maybe my negative outcome is 9 months from now, I even quit working out again. I've been pretty good about eating healthy most of my life, even when I've fallen off on a lot of my positive self-development practices. Maybe I stop even eating healthy. Well, why does that happen? Maybe I get so tired that I can't even bring myself to go into the kitchen and create something that is, beneficial for my body. Maybe I have to really or I feel that I have to really start to lean into quick convenience foods that are riddled with excess salt and sugar, right? But then why is that happening, right? As I am moving towards that worst version of myself, as I feel myself slipping further and further away, what am I doing that's leading to that experience, right? Like what are the habits that I am doing right now that are leading me to that place? Well, for most of us, we can easily identify that cannabis is a big part of that. And so get really clear, right? Write down all of the cons. And I would say if right now you're really struggling to even make it one day, keep that list close to you, right? Now that's only the first step. And I'm a big fan of these kind of macro level goal setting things, but I'm also, I'd say I'm more of a fan of real technical approaches. And I think that at the end of the day, you have to start to set really hard lines in the sand for yourself, right? Get 100% clear on the fact that you don't want to be smoking weed. And just like I talked about with doom scrolling, hold on, I'm gonna run down this hill so I can avoid like having to do the slipping thing. Oh my God. Okay, whew. Sorry guys, that's like the most effective way to get down a hill. You just gotta run. None of that baby step crap. But yeah, so the thing that works for me with doom scrolling is just you draw a hard line in the sand that no, I don't fucking do this. There's no excuse for me to be doom scrolling. I know that I'm searching for some little tidbit of dopamine that's gonna make me feel better. But I'm never gonna find that with the doom scrolling. And by the exact same token, I'm never gonna find that with the cannabis. I might find it in the first couple seconds, right? I might find it within the first hour of being high, right? When the high reaches its peak. But for a lot of us, we're kind of at that point where you smoke, and then the second that you smoke, you immediately know that I did not want to do that. I don't want to be high right now. I let myself down, and thus I experience the shame of taking an action that I don't actually want to have taken. So what you do is you simply draw a line. You simply draw a red line, metaphorically in your mind or whatever it is, that at any given stage of the routine, because that's what it is, right? At any given stage of that routine of consuming cannabis, you just remind yourself that this is not what you want to be doing. This is not, this experience will only lead you to experiencing more shame. Whether or not it causes you to experience shame, the bottom line is it's hijacking your dopamine, right? You do not want to have your pleasure hormones, your experience of positivity in this life dependent on a substance, right? Whether it's an extreme substance, like crack cocaine, or it's a mild, or shit, I mean, for me, it was psychedelics, like LSD, psilocybin, right? These things are taxing. They take a lot of energy. You basically can't do anything else during those experiences. Or it's something much milder like cannabis, right? You are reliant on that substance. You need that substance in order to feel whatever it is, balanced, aware, curious, excited. And that's a shit position to be in, right? Because the second that you don't have that substance, you become desperate. And the bottom line is you are out of control in every part of that experience. And I think that's one of the reasons that cannabis becomes so hard to quit, is that we find ourselves so deeply reliant on it. But then, of course, the tax to maintain that cycle is not as bad as going through that long form of, that long period of a week, 2 weeks that a lot of us require to fully recover, or at least partially recover enough such that we find ourselves somewhat functional again in life. And so draw that line. I mean, throughout that routine, remind yourself, I'm not going to do this, right? As you are going and buying the weed, tell yourself, you know what, fuck it. I'm not going to do this. Call your dealer and tell them something came up. You're not going to be able to meet them, right? Walk into that dispensary and tell yourself, like, man, I'm going to spend this money, and I'm going to spend it on something that is, for all intents and purposes, making my life worse, right? Even after you buy it, as you are taking the nuggets out of the bag, as you are screwing on the vape cartridge, remind yourself, I am going through this routine because in the moment it is making me feel good. In the moment, I believe that I am reinforcing something that's going to make me feel good. But the truth is that I am moving towards personal destruction, right? I am spending another proverbial energetic dollar to destroy myself, to destroy my future, to dismantle the version of myself that I know that I truly want to become, right? I guarantee nobody watching this wants to be a stoner. Nobody watching this consciously wants weed to rule their lives that much, right? And so you draw that line, and throughout the routine, you have all of these different opportunities to stop yourself. And I guarantee it will feel so good when you do it, right? I mean, one of the best feelings about quitting weed is every time you make the decision not to smoke, you will feel such a sense of pride, right? And that alone will raise your dopamine. That alone will encourage you that, you really are somebody that's capable of choosing a life that's more than this, right? But then beyond that, you need to replace that with activities. There's no right way to do this. I mean, I would say that the ultimate right way is literally just whatever your intuition tells you. And this is kind of where I would say that the big thing is to start practicing listening to your intuition. Your intuition will always invite you to do at least something, and then you start to kind of question it. It's the fear, it's the doubt, it's the indecision of being able to choose what it is, the constant wondering if this really is the right thing that I should be doing. But if it came up, you might as well fucking try it. That's the thing is there is no wrong answer. There is only experimentation. There is only reflection, and then pivoting to trying something new, right? And you have to go through that. That's what science is. And this that you are going through right now is the science of discovering yourself, right? That's what you're doing. You are becoming an expert in your own experience. And so listen to your intuition, but it's fitness, it's creativity, it's whatever that is. It's art, music, it's being outside. It's trying to rekindle relationships of the past. I don't know why this week I've had so many conversations with, old friends, but that has been so incredibly satisfying for me, right? To be able to rekindle a lot of these old friendships and have conversations with people I haven't heard from. One of the people I've been talking to is one of my best friends from almost 20 years ago. 20 years ago? Come on. 15, 14 years ago. I'm still a kid, so what can I say? But that's been super satisfying. But it's all of these things that I'm just kind of allowing myself to experiment with in order to give myself just that little bit of juice for life, right? Passion for simply existing. Passion that many of us experience as a wanton thought when we're high, right? We wish oh man, if only I wasn't high, I would do these things, whether that's a conscious or subconscious thought. I guarantee so many of you have had that feeling of you get high and then you think of all these different things that you want to do, and then boom, being high is the hurdle. Of course, I'll leave you guys with, this is just my experience. I get so many people in the comments that are like, I've been smoking weed for 30 years and it's, I got a nice house and a wife. And I'm like, brother, good for you. Although I got to be honest, the confidence doesn't ring all that true to me listening to you, being that you felt that you had to comment this on a video, that every single one of my videos are dropped with disclaimer that this is my experience, my dog. And I think that there's a reason that so many of you resonate with it, because a lot of us are going through the exact same thing. But I'm just telling you what's worked for me. And if you're trying to overcome this for yourself, if you're trying to return yourself to a healthy, natural state of mind, I've just got some ideas for you. Give them a try. But that's all I've got. I don't think I'm going to cover anything else. I think effectively that's why in total, I think that, weed can be so challenging to give up as compared to other things. I think it's so much easier to allow it into your life. And it takes so much more willpower at any given moment to remind yourself that, hey, there are these taxes that you have to pay. There are these debts that you will hold on to in terms of your mental health, your energy, your spiritual association with who you believe yourself to be in comparison to who you want to be. And that just keeps on building, right? And years will go by and you will lose those years to the question of what could I have been had I just had enough willpower at this moment, at this moment, at this moment. But the reality is that you are here right now, right? Those times are gone, but there is a significant amount of time in the future that you have, right? This life is just beginning for you. There is a whole new state of existence on the other side of you just making this decision right now. And quitting is a long journey. It's not something that happens overnight. Well, at least it hasn't been for me. And I'll leave you with this, for those of you that comment on my videos or in the Discord or whatever it is, sending me emails talking about how, you went a month and then you fell back into smoking weed, or you went 6 months or whatever it is and you fell back into smoking weed, and you're kind of sharing the disappointment in that. Let me just remind you that 6 months is a long time, right? For me, having smoked almost every day for 10 years, at many points in that 10 years, smoking all day, just being blazed constantly, 10 J's a day, right? There was a point where my routine was 3 backwoods a day. It's fucking crazy to think about now. And I know for many of you, it's way more than that, right? But if that's your experience and then you go a week without smoking weed, that's incredibly impressive. You should be impressed with yourself. If you go 1 day, 2 days without smoking weed and you find yourself returning back to your routine, the reality is that you did that. You managed to be able to do that. Do it again. Try again. That's all this is. That's all any skill is. And this is a skill, right? I always say that I'm not super impressed with people that are straight edge, having never been addicted to any substance in life. It's like, because so what? Like, you're straight edge, having effectively watched other people struggle with addiction at a young age. You were afraid of that. But the thing is, you were not afraid, right? You were willing to go out and experiment with something. And yeah, maybe that was a bad fucking idea. But here you are, having struggled with that, now attempting to be an entirely different person, now attempting to move past one of the greatest human challenges that exists on earth today, and that is addiction, right? And so give yourself credit for having done whatever it is that you did. 1 day, 2 days, one week, multiple months. I had a guy telling me, he was like, I went 6 months and then I smoked again. Like, oh, and I'm like, bro, I've never gone 6 months. In my fucking living memory, I haven't gone 6 months without smoking weed. And here I am, proud of my measly 100 some odd days. Dude, like, good for you. Do it again. And then do it again after that. And you will find that as you continue to do it over and over and over again, you are exercising willpower like a muscle. So that's what I got for you guys. I hope that was helpful. Just another little ramble from your boy. Hope you're having a phenomenal day. If you need anything, drop a comment. Shoot me an email. I've had some really phenomenal conversations with you guys recently, and I've had somebody ask me recently if I'm going to start kind of offering coaching. And like I said in another video, I was going to wait until I hit like a certain subscriber number. But if you are interested in coaching, let me know. Shoot me an email, drop me a comment. I'll probably start it out just donation based. I coached a couple of you earlier this year for free, and I had a phenomenal time. I mean, I really appreciate those of you guys that reached out and were interested in the coaching, because I really felt like it was a blast developing a relationship with you guys. And so I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it free anymore, but maybe we'll start with donation based and see what happens from there. So that's one-on-one. I'm also thinking about in the Discord doing a consistent accountability group. So if any of this sounds interesting to you, you can shoot me an email. My email is below this video. It's zavoy2@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. For those of you that have been following me on Instagram, I have not been posting in over a year, but I might start posting again. I really appreciate you guys, just expressing interest and trying to keep up with me wherever I am. I'm most active here on YouTube, but all that's just to say that I really appreciate the support. It really means so much to me that you guys are, well, I guess that, that you guys are letting me know that I'm helping you. And so I want to help you guys in whatever way that I can. So let me know, keep in touch, and more videos to come. If you guys have any ideas, if there's anything specific you want to see a video about, drop a comment. But until then, much love. Adios. Peace. Namaste. Bye-bye.